Hello, and welcome everybody to another episode of Pod Strickland. I'm your host, Shwin and this is episode 349. I am joined on this frigid Tuesday morning by my co-host, Stacy. That is at StacyPatton89 on Twitter. Stacy, how are you doing on this, I guess, half victory Tuesday for you?
Uh, Mixed feelings, I guess, as a result. I don't feel too bad about the Knicks loss yesterday. It's a really good team. Again, shit happens.
Yeah, I can't say I'm very broken up about it. I am very broken up, maybe. I don't even know about broken up is the right word. Annoyed by one particular player, which we'll talk about. But before we get into that, I do have to make a few announcements. The first being that Strickland has Instagram. Check that out. That is at the Strickland on Instagram, posting all kinds of new content on there. Strickland also has a YouTube channel where you may be watching this podcast. If you are, and you've not done so already, please hit like, leave us a comment, and subscribe to the channel. That'd be a huge help to us. The Strickland also has merchandise, which I'm wearing some of. You can find that on our website, which is at www.thestrick.land. There's a link that'll take you to the merchandise store. You can find all kinds of cool stuff on there: t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, coffee mugs, water bottles, you name it, we've got it. And the Strickland also has a Patreon, which you can subscribe to. There are a number of different tiers. There's a $6 tier that gets you access to Pod Strickland, podcast that I host every Friday with the Prez. You also get access to the Strickland mailbag, which is no longer the Strickland mailbag. It has actually been rebranded and is now called Takes from Obvious Bozos. That is hosted by Andrew Steele, aka Doug, alongside Zach Blatter. You submit takes, they grade them. Very simple concept. The Strickland also in this tier gives you access to the Discord where the conversation never stops. There are further tiers. There is a $9 tier that gets you access to Strickland Roll, my solo pod where I rant and rave about the Knicks even more. You also get access to wonderful premium articles by Matthew Miranda, one of the best in the business. And now you get access to Strictly NFL, our newest pod, an NFL podcast hosted by Constantine and Jeffrey Rasmussen, who you will be familiar with from the Run Down. There are further tiers. There's a $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, and $100 tier. There's comes a variety of additional benefits like listening on pod recordings, merchandise discounts, and even potentially hosting a podcast alongside yours. Truly, one day, whether you choose to subscribe or not, none of this would be possible without you. And none of this would be possible without Bet Online. The holiday season is off and rolling with NFL in full stride, and the NBA and NHL hitting midseason form. Bet Online is your number one destination for all your sports wagering info. With up-to-the-minute sports wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions, Bet Online is the top spot for everything pro and amateur sports, not just the big four. BetOnline has info available at your fingertips with both desktop and mobile access at any time for almost any sport that's played, from MMA to international soccer. Head to the BetOnline app today and remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. Yes, the Knicks lost 117-100 to the Timberwolves. Frustrating game in some ways. Back end of a road trip, which they close now at 3-2. Just want to read off some stats here. The Knicks are now 12th in offensive rating at 113.8. The Knicks are now 5th in defensive rating at 109.1. The Knicks are now 6th in net rating at 4.7. They are number 1 in defensive rebound percentage by quite a margin, 77.5. The Kings are second at 74.4. The Knicks are number 2 in offensive rebound percentage at 34.8, just behind the Jazz at 35.5. Obviously, we know they're not shooting well from the field. I believe they are 27th. They're 27th in true shooting percentage. They might be 29th or 30th in effective. They're 27th in effective field goal percentage. Those need to improve for sure. I still feel fine about this team. They lost a tough game yesterday to a very, very good Timberwolves team. And I know after the game, there's a lot of discussion of like, oh, did the length bother them? And is that why they lost? Maybe. It's very possible that had something to do with it. But I just thought they missed a lot of shots that you would feel good about them making on another
9
night.
for 38 from 3, so it's tough to win in the NBA.
Yeah, like and like, I think Quick had a couple rim in and out. DiVincenzo had a couple rim in and out. Brandel just did not have it from distance yesterday. I think RJ is probably the only guy, maybe Brunson too, that shot well from 3 individually. Josh Hart either would not or did not take threes. Quentin Grimes 0 for 6 from 3. I don't know. Like, if you want to, you could argue that, yeah, well, they shot the hell out of the ball the previous 6 games, and this is, just
regression.
yeah, this is regression, and sure, that's fair, but like on an individual game basis, this is on the very low end of the scale of what you would expect, or not what you would expect, but like literally just one of the worst possible outcomes you could have in an individual game. So, in that sense, I wasn't too upset about this game. In honestly, the entire macro of the team, I was not very upset about it, bar Quentin Grimes. And like, look, I know that there will be people that did not love Julius Randle's effort at various points, and I understand that. I also think it's just really easy to focus on him because he is very central to the team and he is like a very loud presence on the court. But I didn't feel this was it didn't feel like some egregious Julius effort that we've come to see. I thought this was like a pretty standard. Yeah, he's gonna have like 3 or 4 infuriating defensive effort plays. He's probably gonna have 2 or 3 offensive plays that you're just like, what the fuck are you doing? That go badly. He's probably gonna have 2 or 3 offensive plays that you're like, what the fuck are you doing? That don't go badly. That are actually end up being positive outcomes. And that was standard for it. But like end of the day, I thought he played a pretty decent game. I think his physicality was important in getting the Knicks kind of keeping the Knicks in the game in the first half. Uh, I thought his scoring inside, especially on a night where the Knicks had nothing on the perimeter really as a group, was pretty important. Like I thought it was a reason why the Knicks were able to kind of hanging around. Like they hung around for a while in this game, before the Timberwolves put them away. And quite honestly, like you know, I think the Knicks. I know that if you look at the box score, they're like, well, they took more free throws than Timberwolves. I think the Knicks got a bad whistle in this game, and I also think that Tibbs did not help the cause with that by not challenging calls that could have saved points, and then challenging a call that neither saved points nor gained the Knicks possession for God knows for what reason. Um, but that being said, like I'm not upset. I'm not really upset with Tibbs' coaching. I'm not really upset with any individual players aside from Quentin Grimes, who I thought just was a joke yesterday. But yeah, I was okay with this game. It's a tough end of a road trip. And if you told me before the season, or you told me before the road trip they'd go 3-2 and they'd lose to Boston and Minnesota and beat the shit out of the other 3 teams, or the other 2 teams, and they'd be shorthanded for long portions of this trip and blah blah blah. Like I would have been like, okay, yeah, I'll take that. And I'm still happy to take that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's going to be important. It's a long season. It's new for us Knicks fans to be, I guess, involved all season. Usually for most of my life, by January, February, you're not hanging on to every result that much. I think the Quentin Grimes stuff is a little overblown. I think he needs to be more aggressive. I think it's not even though like he took 6 threes in 24 minutes. That's fine. Like probably there are a few that he could have taken more. Sometimes the ball doesn't go down. I think so. I'm curious to your thoughts there. I do see some of the shortcomings for sure. The defense, I think it was Knicks tape on the Discord who mentioned it. He's had some tough matchups. Had another tough one with Anthony Edwards last night. He is the guy who has to guard the opposing player, which is pretty taxing. And the Knicks still ask you to help a lot, right? So it's not like you're just you're face guarding and that's it, right? You still have your team defense responsibilities. His defense hasn't been as great as what we've been accustomed to through some tough matchups. I do think just the lack of doing anything off the dribble is concerning. That's really the difference between him and DiVincenzo. DiVincenzo can play that secondary connector role, which you've wanted a guy like that for a while. I think it's always been a little bit of a question. How does that fit in with what Tibbs wants to do? How does that fit in kind of with Randall's style? But you can see the difference with DiVincenzo. He obviously didn't have a great game yesterday, but still had 5 assists. And generally can make things flow. And, once the ball gets kicked out, it's not a shot or a pump fake and nothing. Like you see with Grimes, sometimes he can actually keep the advantage going in one way or the other, even if, he has some shortcomings. Obviously, he struggles to finish at the rim. Isn't a great one-on-one creator. But I mean, I think one, he has good chemistry with that bench lineup. I would worry even more about DiVincenzo being asked to be kind of the shutdown perimeter defender. Now, if that's something you want to give to RJ, I think he's capable of it, given his offensive responsibility.
Yeah, I do not want to give that to RJ. We've seen what that does to RJ's offense, and I also what it does to his defense. It's asking too much of him.
Yeah, and I mean, I think he's capable in the sense that we've seen him have pretty good defensive games in the past. I thought he played really well against Kawhi again this year, for example.
Yeah, but Kawhi's cooked.
But yeah, to that point, like that's kind of what Grimes gives you, allowing people to play their roles. It's allowed Brunson, I think, to thrive on the defensive end this year. And then the last thing I'll say is, speaking of RJ Barrett, we have seen Knicks fans get pretty down on a young player struggling with whether it's confidence or rhythm, decision making.
Never here.
Yeah, he was always a full stats guy. But it's just not just him, right? Quickly's gone through struggles in the past. We've seen Mitch have an off year 2 years ago, right? Or at least to start the season. So with these young players, there's going to be ups and downs. And with Tibbs, I think one thing that he's done a good job of, for the most part, is allowing guys to play through those struggles, and we've seen them all kind of overcome it. And I think Grimes will get there. And an 0 for 6 night, 24 minutes. I'm not going to tear my hair out about. I think he's still going to be really good on defense, and it's just getting back to some of the things he was doing last year, where he was attacking and dishing, and at least had enough off the bounce that it wasn't just either he's going to take the shot or nothing happens off a kick out.
So I will try to address this piece by piece. My issue with Grimes last night has a lot more to do with his offense, but I thought his defense yesterday was not good. I know in the first half, Anthony Edwards didn't do much. I didn't really think that had anything to do with Grimes's individual defense at all, to be quite honest. It felt like Edwards started the game almost, I don't want to say deferring, but he was happy to let Cat and Conley and Gobert, those guys cook. And maybe some of it had to do with like how the Knicks were covering him. Maybe Tibbs was showing him more cover, like more bodies, and so he was getting off the ball. Whatever it was, he just wasn't really aggressive hunting for a shot until the very end of the first half. And even that, it was weird. Like he actually got a lot of good shots. He just kept front rimming them on jumpers. So like I didn't feel like, oh wow, Grimes is locking him up at any point. It was just like kind of started off passive and then couldn't make shots at the end of the first half that were actually good shots. And then in the second half, like I don't know what the hell Grimes is doing to start that. That was pathetic. Like I said it on the rundown yesterday. Like he did not get into Anthony Edwards at all. He did not make him compete. He did not try to make him have to earn it physically in any capacity. He just kept like chasing him around screens without trying to deny him screens. He didn't even do a good job of chasing around screens. He did a poor job of getting back into place to contest. He was unable to really keep him in front of him when he did go off the bounce. It was just not a good defensive performance from him at all. And quite frankly, I thought it was a non-competitive defensive performance. I did not like how he played. And I thought there was a very, very immediate difference in Edwards' success in the second half when Quickly came in for Grimes and Quickly was tasked with guarding Anthony Edwards, which I should state makes no fucking sense. Like Emmanuel Quickly, yes, me and you both agree that he's a really good defender, an underrated one. But I also think Quentin Grimes is a really good defender. And very, very specifically, this type of matchup against a guy like Anthony Edwards is not one where Emmanuel Quickly should have a more impactful defensive performance on a player like him than Quentin Grimes. These are the matchups that should be that is what Quentin Grimes' value is about. These type of matchups. I'm not saying he's got to, outscore Anthony Edwards or hold him to like 6 points, but it cannot be whatever the fuck that second half was. That was a joke. Now moving off of the defensive stuff where whatever, if you want to just say Anthony Edwards is a tough cover and it is what it is, and fine.
And Grimes has a track record of playing better. I do agree yesterday was worse.
Yeah. Okay. So if you want to just chalk it up as whatever it is, fine. I'll accept that. Even if I don't necessarily agree. Offensively, I don't know what to say. Like he spent most of the game yesterday being defended by Mike Conley, and he made Mike Conley look like fucking Michael Cooper or something. He wouldn't dribble the ball. He's not looking at the hoop. Every time he runs that dribble handoff with Julius Randle, watch how he runs that dribble handoff with Julius Randle, and watch how Dante DiVincenzo runs that dribble handoff with Julius Randle. And everybody knows exactly what dribble handoff I'm talking about. It's like that Knicks rote play that they use to start the half-court set, where Jalen Brunson comes up, he swings it to Julius, Grimes or whoever the two guard is in the corner, they come around, get a dribble handoff. Watch the difference. Watch the difference between those two guys running that exact same play. Quentin Grimes is running that play not to even attempt to create a shot for himself or look for a shot for himself or look to create something off the bounce for him or anybody else. He is running that play to get the ball, take one dribble towards the top of the key, never looking at the hoop, never even threatening to look at the hoop, picks up his dribble, and throws it back to Brunson, and there has been no advantage created, and now we are 10 seconds into the shot clock with nothing having been done. And then you look at DiVincenzo. Is DiVincenzo creating some like amazing plays out of this? No. But I think yesterday at one point he drove in, either got a layup and got fouled or dished it off to somebody else, whatever it was, right off of that same exact action. I've seen him come off that action and actually turn into a little bit of a pick and roll or pick and pop for Julius, which allows Julius to attack, with space or at least with maybe a head of steam going or get an open jumper, whatever it is. It's a micro advantage you've created now to help your shot creators instead of putting the entire onus of creation on them. And that's a big issue. And like we can sit here and talk about Tibbs's offense is simple and this is telegraphed and that's okay, fine. But like even within that stuff, there is a scope for players to create more than what Grimes is doing. And what Grimes is doing, it hangs people out to dry, and it puts your shot creators in such a disadvantageous position, and it adds pressure to them. And I'll say the same thing for Josh Hart, who I thought, I actually, when we did the rundown yesterday, I was kind of like, I didn't think Hart played that bad of a game. But I went back and watched some of the game later last night and early this morning. And I got to say, a lot of the same issues with him too, where he wants to record scratch all these plays. And guess what? It ends up being a grenade for Emmanuel Quickly with 7 seconds left on the shot clock, or RJ Barrett with 8 seconds left on the shot clock. And I'm not saying all the reason those guys shot poorly has to do with that. But I can remember at least, I want to say, I think 2 shots from both of them that were the result of Josh Hart refusing to pull the trigger on open threes. And Quentin Grimes, sure, he'll pull the trigger on an open three, but that you need more from a starting 2 guard who's being guarded by Mike fucking Conley, bro. Like, are you kidding me? Like, you have to at least attempt to take advantage of that matchup. He didn't even try. Like, he did not try. It's like he's not reading any matchups. He's not taking advantage of any opportunities. He's just playing his role. And even within playing the fucking role, he's not doing a good enough job. Watch him off the ball, okay? Watch him off the ball. Watch DiVincenzo off the ball. Even watch Quickly off the ball when he's playing that 2-guard role, when they're both in the corner spacer position, right? Watch them. You see Quickly, you see DiVincenzo, when guys are driving, when guys are penetrating, moving around to create open passing angles for themselves to make the pass easier and make themselves available as an easier option. You got Grimes just fucking standing there. Buddy, you've got to move a little bit. Just because you're in the corner doesn't mean you literally have to stand in the fucking corner. You are allowed to move a little bit to create an easier passing angle. If Julius is driving to his left, to his strong hand, and you're just standing in the corner and your man doesn't rotate down, that is an impossible pass for him to make. If you lift up a little bit higher towards the above the break stuff, that's a much easier pass for him. And there's a better chance he kicks it to you for an open three. Like all these things he's doing where he's just like, he's playing like they're like Tibbs has been like, okay, these are your things that you need to do. And he's operating almost as if it's a checklist. Okay, I'm supposed to be in the corner here. Done. Oh, I take the dribble handoff and then I swing it to Brunson. Done. Like, it's a checklist for him right now. He's not playing with any confidence. And I'm going to pull it up again right now, but these should be the updated numbers. I did this on the rundown yesterday. He has taken Okay, he's played 296 minutes so far this year. Okay, he's taken 81 field goal attempts. A very nice 69 of them are threes, which means he's taken 12 fucking twos in 12 fucking games. That is ridiculous. He has taken 1 2-point attempt on average per game. I'm sorry. You cannot tell me that's about the role and that Tibbs is forcing him to do this. This is bullshit. He took 2.7 last year. He's taking 1 right now. This is the same role he played last year. There's no difference. There's no difference in the role he's playing. This is the same exact role he's playing from last year, and he is playing so far within himself that it is absurd to watch. He has attempted 1 free throw this season. 1. In 12 games, he has attempted 1 free throw. This is a player who
He's
is
the
just
only player on the team shooting worse from free throw line than Mitchell Robinson.
yes. This is a player who is really, I hate to say this, he is giving you nothing right now outside of the 3-point shooting. And I would say the defense has not been as good so far this year. I'm not as worried about that. I think that can be explained in a variety of ways. And sometimes, like, defensive effort is consistent, defensive effectiveness is not necessarily always consistent. So he might just be going through a little bit of a down stretch on that end of the floor. I'm not too worried about that at all. But like, he's got to go. He just has to play with a lot more force and a lot more passion. And the other part of this too, look, I understand that Mitchell Robinson and Julius Randle are out there gobbling up rebounds and whatever, but like, his defensive rebound percentage is 5.9 right now. That is in previous years, 9.8 is rookie year, 9.4 last year. I'm sorry, this isn't good enough. His offensive rebound percentage, 0.4. Last year, 2.5. The year before, 3.2. These are all small samples we're dealing with, right? 296 minutes. If he has 3 offensive rebounds and 6 defensive rebounds randomly in the next game, all of a sudden this stuff looks better. But the point is, like, this all speaks to a guy who is just playing
with much force.
He's not playing with force. He's just playing to his role in such a very narrow way. It's almost like he's terrified of making a mistake. And I'll tell you what, you do that long enough with this coach, like I've talked about this many times. I think there's such a misconception about Tibbs as a coach where what does he want from his players, especially role players or young players? It is not, he doesn't want you to play like a chicken. He doesn't want you to play cowardly. He wants you to take shots when you're open. He wants you to be aggressive offensively when you have opportunities. He wants you to go get rebounds. He wants you to make plays. Like, DiVincenzo, is he always nailing his decision-making? No. His turnover rate's really high, blah, blah, blah. But guess what? He's doing everything with force. He is playing with a confidence right now, whether earned or not. Like, he does not let mistakes get him down, and he does not let mistakes seep into his next play or the play after that or the play after that. He just moves on and keeps going. Quentin Grimes has to figure this out. He has got to be better, because I look at this box score yesterday, and by the way, I should mention, I think when I say Grimes, I also want to include Josh Hart to a lesser extent in that as well, who I think he's moving much better now, but I still think he's not been nearly as consistent as you would want him to be. But like, I mean, I'm just looking at this box score yesterday, right? Look, I get it. Julius Randle, 6-16, only 21 points. Brunson, the one guy, right? 7-15, 25 points. Awesome. RJ Barrett, 4 of 13, 14 points. Emmanuel Quickly, 4 of 14, 15 points. DiVincenzo, 2 of 8, 7 points. I get it, but like those guys have an onus of shot creation where I'm just going to give them a little bit more leeway when they have a bad shooting game. Versus a guy like Quentin Grimes, especially a guy like Quentin Grimes, who, as we've just talked about, isn't giving you anything. Like, he's not giving you anything other than the idea of like if he's hitting his threes, then great. Like, hey, if he had went 6-6 with me yesterday, we win the game. But like, the point is, like, these guys they have so much more pressure on them and responsibility, and even within that scope, right? Like, as bad as Quickly 4, 14, 15 points is, that's still fucking better than whatever Quentin Grimes gave you. And it's better than whatever Josh Hart gave you. Josh Hart yesterday, 4 points on 2 of 6 shooting, 2 rebounds in 24 minutes, 2 steals and an assist. Like, I mean, if you want to say that was some great contribution, and I'm not saying Quickly or RJ Barrett were like amazing yesterday, but those guys gave you something. They at least tried to give you something. Grimes and Hart to me were just out there yesterday. And you have two role players against a team like this playing a combined 49 minutes who give you basically nothing. That's a problem. And then you look at on the other side of on the other side, look at Minnesota, right? Okay. Anthony Edwards, 9 of 21, 23 points. Mike Conley, 3 of 9, 11 points, right? Karl Towns, the one guy, high usage guy who shot really well, 6 of 10, 20 points. Jaden McDaniels, obviously, he only went 2 of 2 because he got hurt. Then you go down the list, right? Okay, yes. Naz Reid, 3 of 8, 10 points. Nothing. That's okay. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 4 of 8, 11 points. Shake Milton, 2 of 5, 6 points. Kyle Anderson, 3 of 4, 9 points.
Gobert was 7 for 7.
Yeah. Mitch was what, like 5 of 7 for 10 or something? So it's not like
again, he had 11 rebounds again, 7 offense. That's I'll shout that out too. We can talk about 3-point luck. It is concerning that the Knicks did the things that they want to do. 17 offensive rebounds, only 10 turnovers. Those are usually the check marks you look at for the Knicks to win. So it tells you that a lot else went wrong, and we can't just say, "Oh, the 3-point shooting sunk them." Like they got a lot of what they wanted.
I don't know. I think you can just say the 3-point shooting to a large extent. What's 15 of 36 from the 3? That's like 40%, right? That's like the game right there. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that's the only thing, but I do think it's a large thing.
I'm just saying that there were things that went to the script as well for the Knicks against a big team, right? The offensive rebounds, that stuff was still there.
Well, the script was fine. It's just you have to
actually knock down shots, even when you're winning on the glass.
Yeah, like getting possessions is great. You have to cash in enough for it to matter. But the point is, like, I'm looking at this Minnesota box score. I'm not seeing like some
crazy numbers.
Yeah, this is just like, oh, okay, your role guys came in, and to some extent, all of them contributed. And like again, my point here isn't, oh, Quickly was so great, DiVincenzo was so great. Like, no, but those two guys at least gave you something. I mean, you got absolutely nothing here as far as I'm concerned from Josh Hart. You got, again, 49 minutes, 4 points between the two of them on a combined 2 of 12 from the field. Like, you're not winning a game against a team like Minnesota like that. Even if those guys give you 6 points apiece, or like whatever, like let's say they give you a combined 15 points. That makes a huge difference. Like that puts the game in the balance towards the end of the fourth quarter, and who knows what happens then. Like I just think like this game is so skewed because those two guys did jack shit. And I'm not trying to absolve anybody else of blame, but like I have a really, really hard time getting too upset about like Julius Randle decision making or defensive effort or like
RJ.
RJ missing bunnies or Quickly having like, not making threes, having shots rim in and out. Like I have a really hard time getting upset about any of that shit when I got nothing from, these two guys playing 49 minutes.
Yeah. And I think to your point, I think that's a good point on the DHOs because
you saw, I mean, not to absolve any of the blame from Phil Jackson, right? But he talked about this.
Huge news. I want to read this off. Matt Canada has been relieved of his duties as offensive coordinators for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Bet them to win the Super Bowl, guys. Might happen.
Yeah, I'm sure. I
don't know if a lot of people are going to pick it. I don't know. But have fun learning Canadian, buddy. Getting back to the Knicks, so I think that's like when the Knicks were trying to run the triangle and it just wasn't working. One point Phil Jackson made is that I think the Knicks have said the cuts are very easy to for the opposing teams to notice and so the Jackson's point was but you have to commit to everything, right? There's a lot of options. You kind of have to commit. When you come off a DHO, everything has to be a threat. And Prez has talked about with Grimes, the Knicks are very analytically driven. They probably don't. I mean, and if you look at the efficiency of movement threes, unless you're like Steph, it's generally not a very good shot. Even guys like Redick are excellent shooters. So it may be that Grimes is like they have told him generally this is not a shot we want, but you still have to commit, right? You have to make the defense adjust to all of that. With Hart, I think Hart is generally better at that. I do wonder. So Minnesota's a team that the Knicks have struggled with going back a couple of years, right? They've always been very athletic, and now they're actually good too, right? So Minnesota's always been a team, even beyond just Taurean Prince finding Michael Jordan shoes before a game. Like they are
Michael Jordan shoes. That was like fucking Steph Curry's shoes, man.
Yeah, I don't Lil Bow Wow shoes. I don't know.
Little Bow Wow. You just don't know.
Or I guess now Bow Wow or whatever. I think he got rid of that little. But the point is, like, I wonder if maybe just because of the athleticism or something, like the Knicks or some, maybe guys like Hart or Grimes are not committing as much as they would to actions. Because here's the thing: you can take 6 threes and be a good shooter and not have gravity. Whereas we've seen Hart when he plays with force, even though he's not a great shooter.
But don't you think Grimes has I saw them closing out to Grimes. Like
Yeah,
I saw them closing out to
when
Grimes.
he was wide open. So I'm not saying but he's not leveraging it, to your point,
right
to make things easier, because that requires committing, that requires relocation, that requires always thinking you're going to get the ball. And we have been very critical of RJ and Randall especially, in terms of like the playoffs. Grimes would get 2 attempts in a game, and people would be like, well, he missed both those attempts, and we'd be like, well, you need to get him more shots. And I think a lot has been written about how can the Knicks get Grimes involved, but it works both ways, right? And just because the Knicks may not want you to take movement shots, it doesn't mean you don't stress the defense like that. And I think they probably have more freedom than he's taken, because you see quickly take those shots. We've seen RJ take movement threes, right? Or at least off of a relocation. So the other guys are committing. I don't know if it's the athleticism or what between him and Hart, where they maybe just weren't playing with as much force. It could just be a little bit of he's a little, just a funk to start the season, based on whatever he's doing in the offseason, those kind of things. I don't know. I think that this has generally been less of a problem for Grimes, but I think for him to take that next step, it's not necessarily off the dribble creation, right? But it is saying, all right, they're worried about me shooting. How can I do that how can I make them worry about it constantly, even when even when the play is being run for Julius? How can I make Julius and RJ's lives easier by giving them easier reads? And that was the problem with Bullock, right? That's why Bullock was shooting 40% from 3, but the effect of it was not as dramatic on the Knicks offense as you'd like. And you see that you said that they're ranked low in effective field goal percentage. Even though they're 7th, they probably went down. Coming into the game, they're like 7th in 3-point percentage. It's not like they're not getting to the line. They're all shooting very poorly inside the arc. And that's not to put that all on Quentin Grimes or Josh Hart, but you need to maximize the spacing you have, especially when you have guys who, yes, they can shoot. Randall and Barrett's shooting the ball really well this year. Those guys can shoot. You have Mitch as a paint-bound big, but there's still guys like a receiver, a lot of these deep routes, right? They're really to get somebody open on a dig or a route going in the middle of the field. You have to commit to that deep route. You have to kind of make sure that they have to account for you, even if you're not getting the ball. And I'm not, look, like I said, I'm not saying this is necessarily a conscious thing by Grimes or he's just mailing it in or something, but there's definitely a level where he can get to, even if he doesn't improve the off the dribble stuff. Where he's really forcing the defense to account for him on every play. And same with Hart, by the way. Even if he's never going to be some flamethrower, that's something we've seen him.
Can Josh Hart just shoot the fucking ball? Just shoot the fucking ball, dude. Like I don't. He had there were 2 possessions in the first half alone where he didn't shoot the ball. There's one off a kick out. He got a kick out from quickly. This was 5 seconds left. It's an open 3 from the top of the key. Take the fucking shot.
I think
he pump fakes.
Tim's benched him for a pump fake at one point, right?
Yeah, in the 4th quarter.
Yeah.
And so in the first half, he got a kick out from quickly. He has an open 3, pump fakes on it, drives in, takes this awkward ass floater that he misses, and they end up getting a fast break, scoring the other end. It might have been how quickly picked up one of his shooting fouls with very, very heavy air quotes, where he got elbowed in the face. But either way, they scored off that possession. And it's because he drives in, the floor balances off, all of a sudden it's easy for them to get out in transition. Then he had another one. It was very early when he checked in. I think it was quickly. It was maybe his first or second shot where he had to but Hart had a 3 again, open top of the key, doesn't take it, puts it on the floor, comes back, has to swing it to quickly in the corner for who has Anthony Edwards right on him with about 4 or 5 seconds left in an ISO. he has to take some like awkward fadeaway, which he missed. But it's like, these decisions, they might not end up in his box score all the time, but they put guys in bad positions. And he does this a lot, man. He did it yesterday. And that's why he got benched, because he had an open three and he just wouldn't shoot it. And then he had to give it back to Randall. I think Randall had to like try to bail us out. And you can hear DiVincenzo was like, shoot the ball, like shoot the fucking ball, whatever he said. And Tibbs pulled him right after that. That's why Grimes came back in the game. And like, I think that's one, I'm happy that Tibbs did that. I think, look, we've all felt like he gives Josh Hart way too much of a leash. I've felt a lot in a lot of ways this year. But that was good to see, where it's like, hey, look, like if you're not going to shoot the fucking ball there, then you're not playing. Like you've got to take that shot. And the only way to reinforce that at this point is to cut his minutes. When he doesn't take that shot, he should be pulled out of the game. Because look, you might think that Quickly takes too many sometimes, or that Grimes is too dependent on the three, but those guys, when they're open, they take those shots. RJ, right? Like basically everybody else, when they're open, they take the fucking shot. DiVincenzo, whatever, doesn't matter. Hart cannot stop pump faking, and the thing is, he pump fakes. This is not like a Julius Randle situation where he might pump fake and you're like, what the fuck? But there's always a chance that Julius Randle can just like pull a fucking, something out of his ass and create offense or something. Josh Hart is not going to do that. The best thing he's going to create is some weird ass like floater thing in the lane, right? He's not going to create some great shot or some awesome assist opportunity. Most of the time, he's going to create a grenade for somebody else to fucking, have to fucking throw their body over. And it's just like, it's just ridiculous to watch. He's got to like get the fuck over that. As far as Grimes is concerned, I'm not sure. Like you mentioned like young players. Obviously we've talked about this. Where development is not linear. It's up and down. It's peaks and valleys. Whatever. I think that's very much possible that he's going through something where, like, look, we know that over the summer he worked with JJ Redick a lot, and he's talked about it. And I think you've seen it on a few occasions, right, where he'll pump fake and then take a sidestep three, and that's fine. I'm happy that like it's a good weapon to have in your repertoire, and it's definitely something he needs to have. But like it cannot be like he's not attacking closeouts at all now. Like I don't. How many times he didn't even put the ball on the floor yesterday? One time he had opportunities where they closed out hard.
Well, neither did Klay Thompson when he had like 37 points in the. Didn't he have like one game where he had 60 or something without dribbling the ball?
Yeah. So, but I mean, whenever Quentin Grimes wants to put up like 15 without dribbling the ball, I'll be very happy about it. But like he's not even looking to do that, and it's about finding that balance of like, okay, yeah, you figured out this thing that you want to work on. That doesn't mean that you only take threes, or that when you do pump fake on a closeout and the guy blows by, that you only take a sidestep. It's about finding the right balance between your decision making and your like. There's a difference between. I mean, it's like the decision tree thing, right? Where it's like, yeah, you could have like 7 different options available to you, but like they're not all equally valuable, right? Like they're not all equally situationally what you want. So like I think right now he's playing very much within himself, and I do think that he's probably overcomplicating things to a large degree.
Working with Redick might not just be adding that sidestep, right? I'm sure he's trying to change his approach a little bit to being more, all the things that we mentioned, right? Be more involved, right? Figure out a way how even if you're off ball, you're not getting it, the offense is a little stagnant. How can you stay engaged? So it could be that he's having, and then on closeouts, I'm sure like we complained about it last year, right? Every time he drove, it was a dump off, right? So I'm sure he's trying to kind of figure out how he can approach those situations better. And I think with a young player, there's going to be 2 steps forward. We saw this a lot with Quickly, right? We've seen this throughout Quickly's career, 2 steps forward, and then maybe goes too far one way in terms of playmaking or being too passive versus chucking, right? So for off-ball players, that's the thing too. So I do think that Grimes may be going through a little bit of that, of like, now that he's trying to change his approach, you're just thinking a lot more. You're going to be telegraphing things or pre-planning. That's the first step to having it become second nature. So maybe he's just stuck kind of in that kind of a gear at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. It doesn't really matter what. I mean, I guess it does matter what the specifics are, but like as a fan, it doesn't matter to me. I just want him to figure it out, because watching whatever the hell that was yesterday, and what too much of this season has been for him, where you're like, hey, are you gonna do things at all. And like, this is why whatever you want to say about Quick or RJ or whatever, like those guys have and continue to show a willingness and an ability to put the ball on the deck and make plays. And until Grimes does that, I'm sorry, he's just a lower caliber prospect. He just is. Like you cannot. There's a ceiling. Like even Klay Thompson. Like he is the ultimate version of a guy where it's like, oh, I can't really dribble, but I'm still super, super, super valuable. Grimes is nowhere near that caliber of a shooter, not even close. And so, like, his ceiling is to me is pretty much like awesome 3-and-D guy until he shows any capacity to do something off the bounce. And I'm not even just talking about like attack closeout. So we're talking about the dribble handoff stuff. Like there's just got to be way more confidence in that. Like, I'm sorry, dude, Mike Conley, you are allowed to dribble on him a little bit. Like I'm not saying you need to do like 15, fucking combination in and out dribbles and stuff. I mean, not everybody can be Mitchell Robinson, but like,
But you're not saying he needs to add like a 1 dribble pull up, a 2 dribble pull up.
No.
He needs to figure out who he is at the elbow.
No, he doesn't need to figure out who he is. I actually don't think I ever want to see him figure out who he is at the elbow. I'd like to see him figure out who he is at like the 3-point line and at the rim, and then we can, we'll fill in the
I mean, so if you think he's a 3-and-D, like, what do you think? Do you think someone like Norman Powell, is that an outcome he can reach, or Gary Trent Jr., or because those guys still do things off the dribble, right?
Well, Norman Powell low-key sucks, so hopefully,
I mean, that would be a pretty solid offensive outcome for Grimes, at least.
Yeah, offensive outcome that gives it all away defensively, but somehow got a reputation as a good defender. I mean, Gary Trent Jr., sure. Like, I actually think Gary Trent Jr. is probably a bit underrated defensively. And yeah, he's a lot more dynamic offensively right now than Grimes is. He's a more willing shooter under pressure, under contest. I mean, that's the thing that I think really sticks home, like really, really right now. You're seeing that difference between Grimes and DiVincenzo. DiVincenzo has hit, and he's willing to take a couple threes where it's like, okay, he catches the ball, guy's right in his grill, and sizes him up, and then he's just boom, like he shoots it. Like against Charlotte, he made a few of those. Yesterday, he did not. So it's not like he's always drilling those shots either. But there's a value to the willingness to take those shots. Grimes yesterday, okay, you don't want to put the ball on the floor against Mike Conley? Okay, that's fine. You can shoot over the fucking top of him. What is Mike Conley going to do to your jump shot, man? He can't jump, and he's like 4 inches like tinier than you.
And he's like 85 years old.
Yeah, like you've got to be able to take advantage of it somehow, some way. And instead, he did it. And you effectively, in a lot of ways, you could argue this. You're effectively playing 3-on-5 at that point with him and Mitch on the floor. I know Mitch is like a threat offensively in a way that has value that I think gets understated. But in terms of actual creation, actual ability to do something with the ball in your hands, like Mitch isn't doing anything. And when you have another guy,
what about that crossover yesterday?
Yeah, it wasn't even a crossover.
No, it's the in and out. Yeah,
it was great. But like, you get what I mean. Like, he's not really doing anything with the ball in his hands. And then when you like, I mean, this actually makes the point. Mitch did more yesterday with the ball in his hands than Grimes did. That should never happen. That is insane. And you so effectively you're playing the start of each half 3-on-5 on offense in terms of like any type of shot creation, right? Like that is.
And Mitch has like a huge impact elsewhere, right? So
yeah, and Mitch even has a huge impact offensively now that Grimes doesn't have. So like, if we can sit here and talk about the half court offensive struggles and structure and Tibbs like, oh, he's got to be more creative and we need more movement and blah blah blah. But like, there's only so much you can do, I think, right now with the way Grimes is like, if Grimes isn't going to take advantage of anything, then there's just really not much you can do other than hope that he hits his threes. And when he hits his threes, great. When he doesn't, I mean, look, I think it's admirable we stayed in the game as long as we did in that first half, considering a lot of things. But that second half started and that group had no juice. And, Tibbs, look, whatever. Tibbs is Tibbs. I knew that when that second half started, that group sucked. RJ picked up his 4th foul. He brought in Josh Hart because fuck knows that we know that Josh Hart in the starting lineup group is just always such a killer. And that game was over. By the time he made another sub, it was a 15 or 17 point game. It was over. And that's what it is. Like, so yeah, I can blame Tibbs. Like, hey, you should have made a change sooner. Grimes shouldn't. I agree with that. But like, we know that's what Tibbs is going to do, and Grimes should know that's what Tibbs is going to do. So he knows he has this opportunity at the start of these halves to either win himself more minutes or get a longer run or whatever, and he did nothing. And that second half, like I think it's extreme dependent on one or two players, but I really thought that second half was like, in large part on both ends of the floor, so much down to Grimes. I thought he was terrible, man. Like I really thought he was awful yesterday. It was one of the worst games. I think that is the worst game of his career, as far as I'm concerned. That was terrible.
He had a couple of stingers in the playoffs, but
but his defense was always good in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's just definitely want to see more. I mean, there's been a lot of calls to start DiVincenzo. No. You're still not there yet.
You need to give this at least 20, 25 games. The sample of Grimes in that starting lineup being really good is way too big at this point, that I'm just like, oh, well, it's over. Like, put DiVincenzo in. No, but I think you got to, but they've played 14 games so far.
Yeah.
Around 20, 25 games. If this is still not, if it's still just Grimes, yeah, when he hits his threes, it's great. But other than that, he's not giving you much, and the defense isn't necessarily where you would want it to be. Yeah, I think you consider it.
Yeah. I mean, you wonder, I think the argument would also be that maybe he would be forced to get a little bit more involved if he plays with the bench. Shifting gears a bit, the Knicks are one of the worst 2-point percentage teams, I believe, right now.
They're the worst.
They're the worst, yeah. Do you think this is something that regresses? I mean, Brunson is shooting the flame off the ball, but awful from where he was great last year in the floater range, in the mid range. Randall struggled a lot to finish. Mitch, I think, is also shooting very poorly.
He's picking it up now.
Yeah,
and I do think with Mitch very specifically, he gets punished because tips get counted as shot attempts. So there'll be possessions where he gets like a tip, right, to keep it alive, and then so that's a miss. But then he makes the next one. So it's like you went 1 of 2, but it's like, okay, who cares? But just want to read. I'll read this off for now. In terms of 2-point percentage, right now, Deuce McBride 100% from the field from 2. No, okay, of the actual rotation players, that you'll be happy to know that Quentin Grimes is shooting a robust 58.3% on his total of 12 2-point field goal attempts this season. Jesus. Isaiah Hartenstein 57.9, Mitchell Robinson 57.7. So then you get to the actual shot creators, right? Quickly 52.7, Hart 50.9, DiVincenzo 50, Fournier. We're not doing any fuck torn. I'd never need to see that fucking loser play again. By the way, what a joke that was. RJ Barrett 43.5, Julius Randle 43.4. Jalen Brunson 41.6. I mean, that's it right there. That's the whole thing right there. Like, I'm not worried about Mitch. I will say the Hartenstein number, I'm not worried about it in the sense of like, I think that'll pick up, but I also need Hartenstein to just stop trying to do so much. I feel like especially this entire road trip, I felt like he was trying to do way too much every time he got the ball, be it on the perimeter, be it on an offensive rebound. He's complaining to the refs constantly. Dude, shut the fuck up and just like play within yourself a little bit more. Like yesterday, that dribble handoff yesterday where he dribbled the ball off his fucking dick and turned it over, that was ridiculous. I think he got pulled almost immediately after that. I have no idea what that was. That was insane to watch. He's just trying to do too much right now. I want him to do more. I want him to have the freedom to do more. But there's a difference between doing too much and doing and not doing enough. And he's got to find that little in between ground there, which I think he will. I think it's better for him to start doing too much and dial it back than what we had last year. Where it felt like he wasn't doing anything, and you're like, well, this is cool. I guess we have a second Mitch who is nowhere near as athletic around the rim. I guess it's cool. But yeah, like I'm not too worried about it long term, but I did not like how he played on this road trip. And I do think a large part of why the bench has not necessarily been as dynamic as it's been previously, has to do with him and to a degree Josh Hart as well. I actually think Quick and DiVincenzo have been really good, and I like how RJ has slotted in. Although yesterday, obviously, some of his finishing issues were a problem, but like in
Do you
general,
think it's lingering effects of, obviously the time off and migraines and all that? Or?
RJ.
Yeah, I mean, we're not doctors, so.
I don't know. I just think maybe he was. I just think he forced it, honestly, the last couple of games in ways that he didn't need to, which is annoying. But like, you're hoping that maybe it's more like, oh, he was out for a while and he feels like he's trying to like get himself going. So hopefully that figures itself out. Hopefully he has a nice Thanksgiving and doesn't eat too much to get food poisoning or whatever the fuck it is.
Don't Canadians have a different Thanksgiving than us?
Yeah, but he's in America now, dude. Let's I know that they do have a different Thanksgiving. Let's see. Canadian Thanksgiving has already happened. It was, I think, let's see. It's October 14th, 2024. When was it this year? It was October 9th. So he no excuses. No excuses for RJ. No, like I just think he was probably I would be a little more worried about is it lingering effects if the three was bad. And like his three looked good yesterday. Other than that fucking disgusting air ball he put up in the second half. I don't know what that was, but no, his three looked fine. So I'm not too worried about it. But like, yeah, the decision making need to be better. I saw people like not happy with his defense in the second half, and I thought he did have that one play that he got back cut on that was really, really annoying at the end of a shot clock. But like, I didn't notice anything egregious. Maybe I need to watch again, but like, I don't know. I did not think the defensive effort as a group yesterday was necessarily a huge issue. Execution, efficacy of it, sure, but effort-wise, I didn't feel like, oh, they're not giving it, or I didn't really feel like.
I mean, by their standard, just 117 points is not great results, right?
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not. And I do think like the transition defense very specifically is a problem. They need to get that figured out. They constantly just lose guys in transition for no reason. They don't pick up the ball handler in transition. And this has been a problem since last year. So this is a concern for sure. But like half court defense, I don't know. I thought Minnesota made some shots that you're just like, you tip your cap and you move on. Like Jaden McDaniels made a pull-up dribble right at the start, or pull-up dribble jumper right at the start of the game. I was like, okay, fuck you want me to do? But yeah, I don't know.
I like in the 2-point shooting, the guys who take the most 2-point shots, that's where it's 14 games now, right? And Jalen Brunson career is a 68% finisher. He's shooting 48% at the rim. Career 48% from 3 to 10 feet, 36% this year. 37% from mid-range, career 48. Randall is also down across the board, right? Randall is only shooting 51% at the rim, 44% 3 to 10 feet. He's shooting from 10 to 16 feet, a career low 29%. Even that regression year, he was much higher. Do you think that like, is it time to be concerned about those things at all yet? Or on the flip side, do you think that if that's what's dragging down the Knicks EFG, that there's a lot more upside? Like, how do you kind of put that in context?
I think there's
like that floater used to be automatic for Brunson last year.
I'm not concerned. I feel like Brunson's had so many of those go in and out this year that it's crazy. I don't know. I'm not too worried about the floater thing. I am a little worried about the shots at the rim because to me, if you take this as a criticism, that's fair. I don't necessarily mean this as a criticism. This is just my observation. To me, it feels like Mitch is very much at the rim or in the dunker spot position all the time right now. And he is there very early, and guys are sticking to him, so they're around the rim, and that area is clogged constantly. Obviously, it was clogged all the time to begin with. But even when he runs pick and roll now, it feels like he's not even rolling to be a lob threat. He is just rolling to get offensive rebound position. And so it makes it harder for those guys to finish around the rim. I'm not sure whether they're okay with. I'm not saying like maybe they're okay with that trade-off. And look, they're up to what again? 12th in offensive rating, and like that's with a truly horrific start from Julius, like a historically bad start from Julius Randle, and a really bad start, at least for himself individually, for Jalen Brunson. But like, I mean, I would just say that I'm gonna guess. I'll look it up right now. I would guess over this road trip that Brunson's 2-point field goal percentage improved quite a bit. It felt like it to me just watching anecdotally. So let's see. He shot. So on this trip, he shot 47.5 from the field. He shot 53.7 from three. Jesus Christ. So he shot about close to it. He went 5.5. Yes. So he shot 5 field goals made or 5 2-pointers made to 11.6 2-point field goals attempted. 5 divided by 11.6. Still not great. I mean, that's like what he's shooting
well
for the
below
season.
his. Yeah, that's what he's shooting for the whole season, and he's well over 50% from, or he's usually a 50% or higher guy for most of his career.
I mean, what I think would help him in general, if he's especially the way he's shooting the three, they should set these screens way higher up the floor, like consistently. They do it every now and then, but it should be way higher up the floor, both for him and Quickly. The one time they set Quickly a screen high up the floor yesterday, he walked into a three to start the fourth quarter and drained it. By the way, Quickly, this is a very, very interesting thing that's going on with him. His 3-point shooting is really interesting to me. So right now, he's shooting 34.7, just under 35% from three. But the thing that is very, very interesting to me about his 3-point shooting is this. He is shooting right now. He's taking 36% of his threes from the corner, which is the highest percentage of threes from the corner he's ever taken in his career. He's shooting them right now at 14.8%, which means he is taking whatever he's taking 64% of his threes from above the break, and he's shooting those at God knows what clip. Maybe like I get that that's going to regress and he's going to shoot better from the corners. I also just don't get why he's in the corners so much. Like he is a really dynamic off the dribble shooter from above the break.
But I think a lot of those corner threes are not just him spacing. A lot of this is because he does relocate, right? Or he'll like drive, kick, and keep moving and find the corner. Like I don't think a lot of those are just him standing there, kick out, shoot, right?
Maybe. I mean, I agree some of that is that, but
and DiVincenzo's a guy who actually finds him on relocation a lot. They, because they're playing off each other.
Yeah. But yeah, I just, to me, it's like I'm not like, I actually, if anything, the fact that he's shooting 34.7% from three and he's shooting like, I mean, literally the worst possible percentage you could from the corners is probably a good sign. But yeah, I'm not too worried about him as a shooter at all. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting to bring up. But like Brunson,
he's taking more pull-ups than he has in a couple of years. I think 57% of his threes are assisted. So almost half his. So he's taking a lot more, and I think he's been given more offensive freedom for the most part.
Yeah. But the Brunson thing, yeah, it is worrying to see the 2-point percentage where it's at this point. You would assume that it picks up just because you're like, the floaters stuff, especially, you're like, I mean, that it's going to pick up, right? At some point, you got to figure it is. I know teams are putting bigger guys on him. So maybe this is, hey, if they're putting bigger defenders on you, maybe you need to take more, more threes. He has been, generally speaking, I think his 3-point attempt rate is higher than it's ever been before. So that is a good sign. Like he's taking 6.7 threes per game right now. He is taking, his attempt rate is a career best 0.352, so 35% of all his shots are threes. But it maybe it should go higher. And honestly, I also think that he's shooting more, and I would like to see what his usage rate is. This is, I hate to do this, but it's like I really wonder how much of this is a fact that the kick out opportunity to Grimes maybe isn't there because Grimes isn't making himself available. And I also just don't like, to me, it almost feels like him and Randall are playing. I know that last year there was a lot of oh, it's just these three guys taking turns, right, between him, Randall, and RJ. It feels even more extreme right now, like at times. Yesterday, did they even run a single pick and roll together? I don't think so. And I just felt like both of them were taking turns to just take shots at the top, like ISO from the top of the key and do their thing. Or I guess in Brunson's case, run a pick and roll, in Randall's case, just ISO. So look, I still feel like this group as a whole has stuff to figure out, and that's borne out in some of these percentages that you're talking about. The number that does concern me, though, I can't lie about it, is the RJ one, just because that's a number that he really improved at last year. He was at 49.5% from two. Before that, over 3 years, he had been at 44.5. So he's like, was last year some weird outlier? I don't think so. And I do feel like some of the at the rim stuff should improve. And it's just,
he's shooting well at the rim. He's shooting 64% at the rim. I think the difference is and this is kind of a thing we'd want, right? He's taking more mid-range shots.
Yes.
It's not and I think it's been generally a good thing. It probably helps him at the rim, right? So he's taking 3 to 10 feet. He's less than last year, but he's taking 23% of his shots there, only hitting 38%. It's been a positive development in this game. I want to stress that. I definitely want him to explore that more. But that's the more of those you take. He's shooting 19% from 10 to 16 feet. We've seen him incorporate that. He's shooting only 11% of his attempts from there, but that's almost twice what he's done for the rest of his career. So he's taking more of those, and he's actually shooting worse. So I think with him, it's at least not as much a rim finishing issues as it is. He's exploring more of his game, and a lot more of those are going to be pull-ups or tougher shots that he hasn't really taken as much in his career, which I think is a worthwhile trade-off. But, if and when the three-point shooting regresses, you might see some of the efficiency gains follow suit, right? So I still think if the process is this and he's kicking out more and these shots, I think, I do wonder how many times he's creating Kobe assists with some of his rim misses, right? Because he definitely seems to be a guy where a lot of those are coming in rhythm. And I think you mentioned it before. If Mitch is setting up not for the lob or to box out, they might have made that calculation that's a worthy trade-off. But I think with RJ, it's not the rim stuff, I think, as much as just taking more mid-range shots that he's still getting comfortable with.
Yeah, and honestly, I think at some point, if the percentage doesn't pick up from mid-range, you'll probably have to just tell him to stop shooting them or at least cut down on them. But I am okay with him experimenting and kind of pushing the envelope there a little bit right now. It's important for his own development at times. But you can only, and I've talked about this before. I do think in the first 20 to 25-ish games, Tibbs he wants to look at different things and he tries different things out. And I also think in that context, he probably lets guys do more stuff, do more things than he might normally allow them to before he kind of dials it back. So maybe this happened last year too, right? Where RJ was taking more pull-up threes, and then all of a sudden it was just no more, be gone, pull-up threes. So I do.
That little floater and the bumping thing, that should stay. And that helped him in the playoffs too. But yeah, maybe some of the pull-up jumpers from 16 feet.
Yeah. Maybe we don't need RJ to figure out who he is at the elbow.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Randall one especially, I'm not worried about. I think Randall, a lot of that is just him working his way back from his ankle. And I still think he looks closer. Still don't think he's all the way back. But yesterday, honestly, I thought it was pretty encouraging for him. He went he went 6 to 16 from the field yesterday.
But 1 for 6 from 3, right? So he actually shot the ball pretty well from 2.
Yeah, he went 5 of 10 from 2. And he got to the line 12 times. Hey, if he could make a pair, that would be awesome whenever he wants to do that. He only went 8 of 12 from the line. He's under 70% now for the year. But he can definitely I think there's a lot of scope for improvement with him, and I'm pretty confident he will improve. I'm not last year was a crazy finishing season for him at the rim, but So maybe he doesn't get back there, but he'll finish better than 43.5% from two right now. He'll 100% finish around 50% from two. I'd bet probably well above 50% for being real. I'd bet money on that.
Yeah, I don't think he's shot below 50% from two. He did it his first 2 years in New York, actually. 2020 and even the middle 2 years. So even the All-Star, the first All-Star season, he shot below 50%.
A lot of that though was just like because he was taking so much mid-range that year.
Yeah. And I mean, it's really he's never been a poor finisher at the rim. That's the thing.
Yeah. So if you just look at his career, so if you eliminate his like first actual season, just reading, I mean, I can even include that right now. I'll include it. So I'm not counting his rookie year because that was literally 14 minutes and he broke his leg. After that, 56.8, 65.1, 72.8, 68.9, 60. And then these are the New York years. 63.1, 65.9, 62.7, 67.9, 50.8. Like this is such a crazy outlier that I'm positive this will improve. It's like him and like the RJ one is more concerning again, just because he actually does have a history of being a below average 2-point shooter, except for last season. But like the Brunson and Randall stuff, I'd be honestly stunned if those guys are not better by the time this season finishes.
Yeah, I think that's a fair takeaway. So, I mean, kind of, we're 8-6 now. I don't know what after last night what they are in the standings. They're now back to 7th in the East, but I mean, Miami's 9-5, Orlando's 8-5, Indiana's 7-6. The Knicks actually have the third best point differential in the conference after Boston and Philly. I do expect Milwaukee to improve, and but it just goes to show how tough the Knicks schedule has been. Holistic. I mean, really, I've said this. I mean, besides Boston, there isn't any team I really fear. I think we've both mentioned this. Do you see them making a move maybe to kind of to say, no, this is a contender for real? It's not just to get back to the second round again and figure it out next summer type of thing.
Maybe. I don't know. I think, so like, I don't know that again, like people have said like, oh, well, they're struggling with size against certain opponents, right? So Boston was one and Minnesota was one. I'm just not sure that's the case. It feels like you're talking about 3 games. They should have won one of those, the opener. They definitely should have won that game. And like, sure, I get it. They haven't shot well in those games, especially from inside the arc. Is that because of length, or is that just because of like they just shot poorly? I don't know. I think it's too soon to make a jump to conclusions. But if they feel that that's an issue, which is possible, I think that is something to consider. And like, they have this Fournier contract just sitting there, right? Just sitting there collecting dust and existing. It's possible you want to make a move for an additional player using that, but then you also put into jeopardy some of there's long-term ramifications with the first apron and the second apron and all that after the season. So I'm not sure. I will say though, like, if I had to bet on what position they would want to upgrade at the moment, or that they feel would be the easiest upgrade at the moment, it's got to be on the wing, right? Because we just spent like 40 minutes talking about Quentin Grimes playing like a jackass. And last year we talked about RJ Barrett just not hitting kind of like the benchmarks you'd want him to hit for most of the season until the playoffs, really. So I still feel like something on the wing is, and Josh Hart has not been nearly as good this year as he was last season so far anyway. So like, it does feel like if they were to make a move, that would be where you make a move. Is that Zach LaVine? Is that somebody else? I have no idea. And the Zach LaVine thing is really hard because if you're trading for Zach LaVine, it almost guarantees that either RJ or Randall go out in that trade. And I'm not sure that makes sense right now. Now, I think the argument that people who would want to trade RJ right now would be like, well, look, he's shooting really well from three. Take advantage of this while you can and look to make a move. I don't feel that way. I think that he's actually shown enough to me that, especially with his improvement defensively, that I mean, I didn't want to trade him for Zach LaVine anyway, and I especially don't want to trade him for Zach LaVine now. But that would be the argument you would make, right? It's like, hey, this is actually a good opportunity to sell high on him. I don't agree with that. I think that this is an opportunity and a justification to give him more time and play out the season at the very least. And like, I just think in general, we all have this tendency to overreact to one game here or there. Again, the Knicks are 8-6. The broad sample of their minutes this season, which is now not an insignificant sample, right? 14 games is not insignificant. The broad sample is telling you that, yeah, maybe this team just absolutely is going to be historically dog shit at scoring inside the arc, and their offense is going to be clunky. But it's also telling you they're going to end up being efficient on offense. They're going to end up being efficient on defense. They're going to end up being a top 10 net rating team. They're going to be one of the great rebounding teams in modern NBA history at the very least. And they are going to win the possession battle at a dominant rate. Like, that is probably going to be a playoff team again, in all likelihood. If that is
with the East being this wide open, is there the opportunity to be more than that, right?
I mean, is there a guy that you're like? It has to. You can't just say, "Is there gonna? Who the fuck are we training for?" That's going to make that an opportunity.
No, Chicago is one thing. Levine is not the guy. There is a guy in Chicago who is a net rating god, and would fit in with Tibbs. And you have to figure it out with Hart. I mean, if they'd go fire sale, is Alex Caruso a guy you target?
Yes, I would love to have Alex Caruso, but I also, if they get Alex Caruso, even if they get him just for like picks or whatever this year, you're gonna have to make a consolidation move this summer. So, what I would be interested in, and I do think this is interesting, is like, if you just add up the salaries here, which I'm gonna do very quickly, but let's say we get Caruso. This year is fantastic. 10-year or 10-man rotation rest of the year, and somebody drops out in the playoffs or gets very, very limited minutes playoffs. Whatever it is, doesn't really matter. Fine, fair enough. But I do wonder then, let's just live in this world where we get Alex Caruso for, I don't know, fucking what? I mean,
Anunoby.
the thing that makes it hard with Caruso is like, the salary is just so weird because he only makes $9 million, and the Knicks, like, the only way the Knicks can do that is if you trade basically. So straight up, the only way you can do it is if you traded DiVincenzo or Hartenstein. I don't think the Knicks would do either of those. I don't.
Could they do some combination of like Deuce and Sims and
Deuce makes like nothing. Deuce and Sims gets you to 3.7, which is not even halfway there. Deuce, Sims, Archie Diacono, Dylan Windler, that would get you there. Which maybe, sure, if the Bulls would do that and picks,
well, you'd have to go in picks, right?
Yeah, fine, do that. But like, aside from that, if you're gonna have to do, we'll trade you Fournier and we'll take Caruso and we'll take some other salary you don't want, whatever. Sure, you can do that. The more interesting thing to me is like, let's say Josh Hart doesn't have a great year, okay? And next year obviously his extension kicks in, which I think starts like 16 or whatever the hell it is. Him and Fournier, that gets you to about 33 million if you opt into Fournier. If you can find a trade before the new year starts, that would be like 36, 37 actually, by the way. Is there a player or players or package that you can get for that plus picks that strengthens your rotation in a way that meaningfully matters? I don't know. I mean, look, I don't want to talk about this guy because I don't personally care for his politics, obviously. And and he's a major health risk. But like Fournier for Jonathan Isaac, I don't know. I mean, is Orlando planning on keeping Jonathan Isaac long term? Does he make sense for them long term? I don't know. Maybe they do because they've invested so much in him, and now he's
He is
finally
the
healthy.
quintessential Florida man. Yeah.
Yeah, he is the quintessential Florida man. Other than
New York, he can start a pod with Aaron Rodgers. That'd be cool.
he is a New York. He is a native New Yorker, as Stephen A. Smith would say. But like, that would be a player I'd be interested in. That would be a move I'd be interested in because I think if you're going to talk about size as an issue, which I've never heard personally in my life, but if you think size is an issue for the Knicks, then yeah, I mean he's a player that makes a lot of sense. And Fournier is expiring for him, throw in a couple firsts or whatever, or first, we have all these protected first, right? You can throw in 2 or 3 of those. I wouldn't really give a shit. That would be interesting. But also the Magic are playing well right now. They're very much in the thick of the playoff hunt. So unless they drop out, I don't know that they would even be open to doing a move like that. But that would be one. That's a name that I would kind of like monitor. Another guy that I think would be interesting for them would be somebody like Kelly Olynyk, who I think gives you a little bit like, you're watching that game yesterday, and I'm not saying this is the end all be all, but like the Wolves do have options to run pick and pops with their fives and spread you out and put pressure on your defense in a way the Knicks just don't. A guy like Olynyk would give you that. Is he an amazing defensive center? No, but I do think having that option has value, and the Knicks.
And
just
he's a guy who does. He's a guy who does his job on defense. Like sometimes,
yeah, he's not a bad defender. Right.
A stretch 5 who can do their job. I don't know that I agree that the Knicks are small and that's the issue. Certainly,
yeah, I don't either.
But if you want a little more, I think it's more about the versatility, right? I think you're getting at this with both Olynyk and Isaac, where because what I'm worried about is this, right? The question isn't to me whether this is a playoff team. I think it is. I think if we're wrong about the 2-point shooting and it actually there's a lot of positive regression for Brunson and Randall, you're talking about a whole different ceiling. It's like maybe a top 5 net rating team. Or one of the elite teams. I think the question is when they face a team like Boston, when they face a team like Milwaukee, can you be adaptable to all their circumstances? That was the issue last year, right? Because I think they lost to a team that, frankly, they were better than. So I think to your point, guys like Olynyk or Isaac who can give you some more lineup flexibility. That's really the problem with the Knicks lack of not having a bunch of wings. It's not even, I think, that they get bullied or that, Tatum is just going to, Tatum's going to have games like that, even if you had a 6'9" guy on him. It's more, do you have different adjustments you can make and different flexibility? And I think adding a guy like that's why I like Caruso as a guy who can play multiple positions and put you in some interesting spots. But to your point, I think Olynyk and Isaac, I'm not a fan of because of the injury history and all of that.
You just don't think he's right wing enough for you?
Yeah.
You're more like you really need him to like be more aggressive about his stances.
Is he Nick Adams' favorite player? Then he'll have my attention.
He has to be Nick Adams. He has to be Nick Adams.
Enos Freedom. Enos Freedom probably is. So. That is definitely a parody account, right? By the way,
it's the funniest account on Twitter. It's actually really funny to me that people take it seriously because it's obviously a joke.
Yeah, but
he always tweets about like being at Hooters and like how American it is. It's like, dude, who actually believes this is a real human being? He's also not American. You know that, right?
Nick Adams. I don't. Wasn't he like? But wasn't he actually like a politician or something at some point, or like he ran?
I think so, but he's British. He's like not. He's not an American, which makes it even. That makes it more funny. I'm like, whatever. We don't have to get into the hilarity that is the Republican Party in America.
No, you'd be surprised. But in terms of British people who support kind of all that, no, I think. I mean, is it fair to say that like that's the like it's more about guys who give you more options in a playoff series than having to,
like for example, right? One of the reasons I think that Tibbs is scared or not scared, but like we know that Julius is not a good rim protector. So that's why he doesn't like going small with Julius at the 5 or whatever, right? And he hasn't like doing it regardless of who's been here. I do wonder if Olynyk would change that. Not because Olynyk is some amazing rim protector, but he understands like the basics of center defense, right? Oh, I'm playing drop. oh, I'm switching. Whatever it is, he can execute that stuff at a consistent level that I think Tibbs would be like, we don't
And
know
he's a
for
ton
sure.
of playoff experience, right? He's executed
Yes.
these things in the playoffs.
Yeah, he's
so.
played a lot of playoff ball. I do think that that's something where I suspect anyway, we don't know for sure, but I feel like if you give Tibbs a guy like that, then he will play 5 out, right? Because he'll be comfortable being like, well, I'm giving up a little bit on defense here, but this guy isn't a 0, and I'm opening up the floor. Now Brunson has space. Now Randall has space. Now RJ has space. Like these guys have space to operate inside the arc that they just don't have in any other scenario for us. So I don't know. To me, and I don't think he's going to cost a lot. They got him for nothing, right? They got him for what? They got him. It was basically him for Bogdanovich. That was effectively the fucking trade. They're not going to get much for him. At most, you're talking about what, like a second, 2 seconds. You're not getting a first round pick for that guy. I think he'd be really interesting. And he's a little bit older. Obviously, he's 32. But like, I maybe, if you want to talk to some Jazz fans, I don't plan on doing that. But when I've watched them, it doesn't feel like he's dropped off a ton or at all, really, so far in his game. And his game to me isn't one that I'm too worried about dropping off. I feel like he could probably play at this level for the next 2-3 years. So even if you need to re-sign him after this year, I wouldn't be opposed to giving him a 2-year contract, especially if you're worried that Hartenstein is going to price himself out and get a starting job somewhere. Olynyk's a guy that you'd be like, okay, well, yeah, is he the same type of center that Hartenstein is? No, but I do like I've talked about this a lot, but it's like you need to evolve your team over time and your roster and provide different things. And I do feel like Olynyk would be a very interesting kind of like, okay, we're not trying to be a 5-out team all the time or something, but this gives us a different look. And maybe this is something. And also, I would say this: I think that I think him and Quick and him and DiVincenzo in that bench group, I think they'd be really good.
Yeah, I think he also. I mean, yeah, the Knicks.
RJ and him, RJ would benefit a lot from getting some of those bench minutes to him also.
Yeah, and I think that it does matter that he's been in the playoffs. Like, the Knicks probably are a little bit low on those guys, to be honest. How much does that matter? I don't know. But guys with a ton of playoff experience, you're talking about. I mean, Brunson had a lot, and that had been like a couple of series, right? So for the Knicks, that's a lot. I think that would help. There is another forward who you can maybe make the argument would allow the Knicks to play 5-out, who also plays in Utah. I don't know what they're doing. I think he has another year in his contract after this year. I think you mentioned him in either the Discord or maybe, do you think Lauri Markkanen might be an option at some point? And is that a guy you would invest significantly in?
Yes. Giving up all the picks for him, probably.
Really?
Yeah, I think he is the guy that if you're so the Knicks have 2 options here. You're either going to find a center option at some point. I'm not saying it needs to be in place of Mitch, but at least in a platoon with Mitch that gives you the ability to open up and space the floor out, or you need to get a 4 that is way more comfortable playing off ball and also like creating. Like Markkanen isn't just some off ball guy, right? Like he can create. He does create now too, pretty consistently. He's also at an age, what is he, 25 or 26? He fits with like a lot of what the Knicks are, a lot of the other timelines the Knicks have. You actually get younger if you swapped him for Randall. And I think I've seen enough now with him where like, look, man, their guard play isn't particularly great in terms of
But they have Clarkson and
and I know Keontae George is
still.
I know Keontae George has looked pretty okay so far, but like, look, he's averaging.
Guy.
Yeah, he is. He's averaging again this year 24.8 points on 48.7 from the field, 40% from 3, 8.8 rebounds, 1.2 assists, 1 steal. The assists, yes, Julius's playmaking helps. I do think that the raw number, like Julius's raw number of assists, overstates the value of his playmaking, and like the way Markkanen plays facilitates ball movement more than Randall does. So even if Markkanen individually is never going to be the playmaker Randall is, I do think he brings something to your general team play that I would not. I think the Knicks would probably be equivalent to what they are right now as a passing team, and maybe even slightly better because of that. I think it opens up the floor way more. Markkanen has, if you think Julius has gravity, for sure, and maybe he does draw more doubles when he puts the ball on the deck than a guy like Markkanen does, but Markkanen has gravity off ball in a way that Julius never will. And I think that is very, very valuable. And in particular, if you are committed to Brunson, and if let's say RJ has by the end of the season established himself as a guy that the Knicks are like, okay, well, we have to build with him in mind. Markkanen makes a lot of sense, especially, man, next to Mitch. Markkanen is like the guy you would want in that scenario. And I think his defense is okay. Like, I'm not saying he's an amazing defender, but you're talking about him versus Julius. It's not like it's not like you're swapping out
half a dozen of one. And for what it's worth, the Jazz they have a negative net rating with Lauri Markkanen on the court, negative 2.29, but with him off, they're negative 9.8. They're actually better on both ends, even defense, which is surprising. I would have thought that their defense would get better with him off.
It could be because his minutes are, a lot of them, I believe, are with Walker Kessler, but like at the same time, like a lot of his minutes here would be with Mitchell Robinson, right? So who cares?
I guess the other question is,
and it needs to be said, they're a really good offensive rebounding team. So like it stands to reason that Markkanen is probably a very good offensive rebounder as well, which fits into, as we know, a large part of what we want to do.
Is there a world in which Randall and RJ are both here and we get Markkanen just by trading all the picks, and maybe RJ moves to the 2? Lowry played the 3 in Cleveland, right? So it's not like he has played in super big lineups.
Maybe, but like I don't know. I just think there's too much usage going on there. Like between Brunson, RJ, Randall, Markkanen, like I think you're better off moving out Randall, to be quite honest, and bring in Markkanen. Again, can the Knicks do it? Will it happen? I don't know, but I do feel like, everybody obsesses over like Embiid and who should we get and all this stuff. But like, honestly, man, the more I've watched Markkanen this year, because last year I was like, okay, well, it's 1 year, right? Let's wait and see. I've ended up watching the Jazz quite a bit. I watched the last 2 games they played against Phoenix, which are awesome games, by the way. I'm pretty sold on him, man. I think he's legit. I think the leap he made was not a fluke, and
it's because he's white, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. We just need more white people at the Garden. But like, I'm in. I'm like sold on him as a player. I think he is I'm not going to say he is the guy you would target, but he is definitely a guy. He is definitely a guy to target. And if you put a gun to my head and you're like, would you rather have him or Embiid? Like, I don't think it's crazy to prefer Markkanen at all.
My next question would be going to be, would you rather trade for him or Donovan Mitchell? And
I'd much rather trade for Markkanen.
I actually like the idea of keeping him. Is there a world in which you would rather trade RJ than Randall as the centerpiece of that trade?
No.
So
I mean, I need to rephrase. There are scenarios where I'd rather trade RJ than Randall. Like, let's say RJ regresses the rest of the way, his defense falls off, and his offense ends up being ultimately like around what it was last year. Then sure, I would rather do that. But I really do not want to live in a world where Markkanen and Randall are on the team together. So I'd still want to trade Randall.
Can you expand on that? Because he worked pretty well, especially if Mitch is still there. It worked well in Cleveland, right?
There's nothing to expand. I am pretty much over Julius Randle, and that's what it is. So this is my last year with Julius Randle. I appreciate his time in New York. I am trying my best not to spend every post game worrying about the good and bad of Julius Randle, because I think that's a stupid way to look at it. And I actually think like it can take away from the unquestionably good things that he does do and value he provides. But I do think there's a ceiling to that. And as long as he is here, you will have to play and will play a certain way. And there are just limits to his ability to adapt to some ball and player movement heavy system and attempting on trying on defense and blah, blah, blah. Like, there's just stuff with him that I personally don't feel is going to move. Like, it's just not going to happen. It's not like I'm not even really angry about it anymore because this is what he is as a player. It's a really good player. But it's also a player that I think fundamentally caps.
And you don't think adding a guy like Markkanen might help, by having
No.
another shot creator, another guy who can space?
I don't think his issues to me have very little to do with spacing and those things. I don't think those decisions change with better spacing. Yeah, like he just does not see the floor well enough, does not process the floor well enough, consistently does not make decisions quick enough. That I mean, that's one of my issues with him. It has nothing. It has very very little to do, as far as I'm concerned, with like the spacing around it.
So if we're to make an all-in trade, you basically Randall has to be in it. Is kind of your.
He doesn't have to be in it, but I think he probably has to be moved out in the same offseason. Like people talk about Embiid. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of the Embiid thing, but if you're gonna do it, I really don't want to see him in the same front court as Randall. I mean, I cannot imagine a more brutal front court pairing in terms of just like they're just going to be on each other's toes the entire time because both of them want to play in the same fucking areas. And on top of that, you got two guys who notoriously drop off in the playoffs, and who are both can be turnover machines because they don't read the floor particularly well when they do get doubles and tripled and whatever. So yeah.
Yeah. So looking ahead, the Knicks have they have Miami and Phoenix on Friday and Sunday. Miami should be interesting. I anticipate the Knicks will come out pretty fired up. I like them in that game as a result of that. And then they get the Suns, which I think is an interesting matchup because they have, Booker is always given the Knicks trouble. Obviously, KD's a guy who's, very talented. He's the kind of tall shooter who, if you believe the Knicks don't have some issues with size, is going to pose some problems. What are you looking to see in those two games?
Miami and
Phoenix, yeah.
Miami just win the game. I don't really give a shit how. Most annoying team in the NBA to play against. Bam will probably get away with trying to decapitate 15 guys during the game, so try not to get hurt. Yeah, that would be great. And against Phoenix, that actually is a game that I'm very, very interested in because as talented as Phoenix is offensively, obviously with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, the Knicks should have their way in almost every, like all of the Knicks' advantages, like the things they do well, they should be able to absolutely cream the shit out of this Phoenix team, who is god awful defensively. I'm just looking at the numbers right now. So if you look at the numbers, Phoenix, they are currently 19th defensively. They have a defensive rating of, or 20th in defensive rating, sorry, 115.3. Offensive rating, they are only 8th, surprisingly. I imagine that will go up as Kevin Durant and Devin Booker on the floor more together. So they're at 116.9. They have a very, very, very solid, but not too amazing offensive rebound rate of 26.5. That's 9th in the league. Their defensive rebound percentage, which I think is much more pertinent here, they are 28th in defensive rebound percentage, 73.2. If you want an idea of what the Knicks have done to teams that are not good defensive rebounding teams, they've dominated those matchups on the glass. They lost to the Bucks, but that was a game, again, they shot so poorly. You play that game 90 times or 100 times, they win 90% of them. They beat the shit out of the Wizards. The Wizards are the worst defensive rebounding team in the league. They've not played a lot of it. They beat the shit out of the Clippers. Clippers are 21st in defensive rebound percentage, 73.8. Pelicans are 20th, 74.1. That was another one where the Knicks just couldn't make a fucking shot. So take from that what you will. The Knicks have been able to exert this dominance on the glass against teams that are bad or good, even on the defensive glass. So this is a game where I expect the Knicks. I think the Knicks should win that game against Phoenix. They should win that game. That should be the expectation. And unless they have one of these, again, just ridiculously poor shooting performances, they should win that game. That should be a game that you should go into and be like, that's cool that you have Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, but your depth sucks ass. and our depth is good, and we should come at them in waves and just beat the fucking piss out of them over a 48-minute game.
Might have to give you I'd have to get you to give the opening speech. There's no deal. Beal would probably not be back for that, right?
No, Beal's back is fucking like, it's
Nerve irritation from back to legs. That doesn't. I hope he gets better. That sounds pretty painful. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think that this is. I mean, it seems like given the lack of depth, I think they don't have an answer for Durant, so that's a little annoying. On a great day, you might be saying, "Hey, can Julius step up for that?" We haven't seen that. You saw what a guy like that can do with what Tatum's done both games. Booker always has a good game against the Knicks, and we'll certainly need more from Quentin Grimes. But yeah, this is I think that'll be fun stuff. And look, it is fun, I think, as a fan to go into every matchup knowing the Knicks have a pretty good shot. And I think the way they've constructed this team does that, right? Like no matter how much offensive talent you have, you're gonna have to reckon with Mitchell Robinson. You're gonna have to reckon with Randall, right? He also gives a lot of physicality. We talk about Robinson on the glass, but
yeah.
When you are bodying up Randall for 48 minutes, that takes a toll out of other guys who would be hitting the glass as well, right? So I think that the way they've constructed this team from that sense is, you want to call it Moneyball, you want to call it a niche strategy, I don't know, but it's certainly, I think they've been saying it for a while, and it's probably the peak where I don't think there's a team in the league that wants to face this Knicks team or is happy about that.
Did you do you think Howie Roseman would be part of their roster construction?
He likes building from the inside out. So yeah, I think he would be, if he was the Knicks GM, he would definitely want to be strong in the trenches and have a quarterback leading the way named Jalen. Yeah, I could imagine Tibbs has to love the tush push, by the way.
I'm sure he does.
If Tibbs would run it 4 times, like he would run it literally every play and just get 3 yards of that play.
I'm actually surprised they haven't done a drive like that where they're just like, yeah, we're at the 30. Yeah, that's fine. We'll just run this fucking 8 times. We'll get into the end zone.
Well, I wanted them to do it last night when they were just trying to run the clock out. Because just do it 3 times,
because they get like 3 yards at least on because I see them ones, obviously they do it from like the 1 yard line or whatever in the end zone, but usually Hurts is just like in the end zone, but not even touching the ground yet. He's usually just on top of like 3.
5 dudes, yeah.
Yeah. Just like, I'm like, okay, so he probably could have gotten like another 2 or 3 yards here.
They've also done like not a fake, but like he's like scooted around. Like, so they run the tush push and then like he'll just go around. So I'm curious if they ever bust out a counter to it, or even like, I don't know if there's anyone's an eligible receiver there, but if you do like a play action and like a waggle,
I'm sure one of the linemen has to be an eligible receiver there.
Yeah,
just because they'd have to be, right? Like they kind of,
if you're on the end of the line, yeah.
Yeah, maybe they can do like a jump pass.
Yeah, I mean, hey, whoever the lineman is, he probably would start in Kansas City at receiver too. So we got lucky. I'm not even gonna front on that. That was a great throw. I don't know. Desai coached a great game. I don't know how you let Bradley Roby be in 1-on-1, but man, I don't know how you dropped that pass.
Yeah, who knows? I feel really bad for Patrick Mahomes. What a terrible thing.
Well, no, I mean that's
so hard in his career.
That's the Andy Reid thing, though. Andy Reid is so confident in his scheme, and with good reason, that he believes with the Eagles, they had every year he would figure that, let me just get a 5'10" guy who's fast, and we're going to scheme him open with, how great our offensive line is. And it didn't work out until they got T.O., and then it worked out with Deshaun. It worked out here with Tyreek Hill, but
Todd Pinkston erasure is crazy.
James Thrash. But, you see, like when he doesn't invest in receivers, even with a guy like Mahomes, that's kind of his thing. But I think he does have this idea that like plug any fast guy in there with my scheme, and they're gonna have success.
Yeah, I mean, my heart just goes out to Patrick Mahomes. Just the dearth of talent he's played with throughout his career. It's just really, really tough.
Kelsey had a bad game yesterday too. By the way, I don't know if he felt bad for his brother. He was 3-0 against him, but yeah, he had some bad drops.
Maybe he was like, "Look, man, I'm sorry about last February, but I got you tonight."
He was playing
had-
against. We had Swift on our team, so maybe he got confused and was like, thought that was a different Swift. But
Well, they had 2 red zone turnovers yesterday, right? Kelsey fumbled, and I mean, look, I know that
it was a nice play. That was. I don't even put that on Mahomes really. That was
I
just
mean,
a great.
are we worried yet? Patrick Mahomes, 18 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Who knows? Is he a turnover machine? A lot of people are saying. All right, enough for this. All right, that's our pod for today. Hope everybody has a great week. Stacy, let people know where they can find you and plug anything you'd like to plug. What are you doing anything for Thanksgiving?
Stacey Patton 89 will be enjoying Thanksgiving with my family, and between the hours of 12 p.m. and 3:30 p.m., trying to get as much solitude from them as possible when I probably turn into a raging maniac. So go blue.
Oh, on Saturday. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole weekend.
Yeah.
How about yourself?
I'm just going to be at my sister's for actual Thanksgiving, and then for the Michigan game, the Michigan Ohio State game, I will be by myself at my house, not watching around any other human beings for their benefit and for my own. But yeah, that's it. All right, that is our show for today. I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving. Enjoy the holidays. Enjoy the food. Do not think about the Knicks until Friday. Please do not worry about the end of a West Coast trip that they lost yesterday. This is still a very good team. All right, again, that is our show for today. I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving, and I will see you on. I don't know when the next pod is going to drop. Maybe it'll drop on Thanksgiving. Maybe it'll drop on Friday, but it will drop, and I will see you then. Oh, and thanks to Bet Online.